throughout this time after I married him that I realized I'd made the biggest mistake of my life.
Hey, Michelle.
Hey, Carling.
Things are looking up. We are in the same room.
We're in person.
My God. Woo woo.
At my new house.
We're at your new house. It's a bit echoey. We got to get some stuff on the walls.
Yeah.
And my voice is still not back.
No.
I don't sound my best.
Is our mic plugged in? Yes, it is.
The mic is plugged in.
Perfect. We're doing good.
How's your week going?
I don't know.
You've now been in this house for 2 weeks.
Yeah. I've been unpacking, putting things on the walls.
Yeah. Your parents were just here mounting a TV.
They were.
Yeah. Your whole house is looking really great.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like a little bit gun shy about putting things on the wall because in my bitter mind, I'm like, well, I'm just going to move in 6 months. So what's the point?
But you did sign a year lease.
I did sign a year lease. I really like this place. The landlord's really great. So I'm like, let's just put some things on the wall and just make it feel like home. And
yeah. I noticed out back, one of your neighbors has a pool.
Yes.
One of your neighbors has a hot tub.
Yes.
I've seen a lot of kids in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
This is fantastic.
It's looking good. And I think the kids next door are going to go to the same school my kids are going to next year.
Yeah.
One of them, I think, is Kate's age. So, yeah, it's looking good.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love this.
How was your week? How are you feeling?
Like, I'm still dealing with COVID. I get out of breath. Your mom was so funny. We had to carry something downstairs. And she's, Harling, do you need help? You're turning very red. And I was like, yeah, Donna, I can't breathe. Like, if I walk too fast, if I get up and move around too quickly, I can't breathe.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Just want to get over it. But I had a hate crime committed against me.
That's not what a hate crime is.
It was somebody who hates dogs.
Okay. All right.
I feel personally attacked.
Okay. Tell me your story.
I'm going to set it up. Me and Lindsay walking our 5 dogs on leash.
Yes.
We walk the same route. I would argue to say I am one of, if not the most, responsible pet owner.
Okay.
And
were you wearing the most responsible pet owner t-shirt?
No, but I do have a sweater that says "Don't mess with my dogs," and I wish I had been wearing it.
Yeah.
So we're walking the dogs, and there's lots of people out, and sometimes people stop and they'll make funny comments like, "Whoa, this is quite the crew."
Do they do that thing where, like, when I'm out with my kids, they're like, "Oh, you got your hands full"?
Yeah, literally all the time. They're like, "Whoa, are these all yours?" I'm like, "Yes, they are." So we're like doing our thing, and we're walking, but we see this man. So we're walking down the sidewalk. We're on a sidewalk, and to our left are a bunch of houses. Across the street is a row of houses with no sidewalk. Okay. Some neighborhoods have this where there's only a sidewalk on that one side. So we're on the sidewalk side, and a little ways down we see this man come out of his house. It probably isn't even, it's obvious he was a white old man.
Okay.
And he...
That's 1 point against you right there.
Well... So he comes out onto his lawn, and we're across the street on the sidewalk. Yes. We are not near
his property.
Henry starts pooping.
Okay. Very inappropriate.
This is what dogs do. They poop. So he's like just off the sidewalk on a little strip of grass, pooping. Mm-hmm. Lindsay says, "Oh, you've got the poop bags." And I said, "Yep." So I start digging one out of my pocket. And then we hear this man say, "What gives you the right? What makes you think you can just let your dog poop anywhere they want?" And we were like, where should he go?
Yeah.
What should we do here then?
Yeah.
And you can't just let your dog poop anyone, all this property. This is somebody's property. Yeah, not his property.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's actually a bylaw. A dog can defecate anywhere.
Yeah.
As long as the owner picks it up.
Yeah.
All remnants of it.
Yeah.
And I stood there with a poo bag on my hand.
Yeah.
Ready to do just that. He was filming us.
Yeah.
This is the thing I missed. So when we looked up, he had his camera, his phone, and he's filming us. So naturally, I get my phone out and I start filming him.
Yeah.
And then you can't just let your dog go anywhere. And we're like, "Sir, it is literally a bylaw.
Yeah.
I didn't let him into your backyard and then run away and leave it.
It's not on your front step.
I didn't,
or even on your lawn.
I didn't even let him go. Like, he was literally 1 foot off of the sidewalk onto this grass.
Yeah.
So we try saying it's a bylaw, and now I'm filming him, and then he just turns around and storms in the house.
What a jerk face.
And I just feel like rude. First of all.
Yeah.
How dare you?
Are you the poop monitor of the neighborhood?
Yeah, and if I wasn't picking it up, like, for sure, call me out. I have
Yes.
seen people not pick up their dog poo and I've offered them a poo bag.
Not only that, but if that was my neighbor and your dog was pooping on my lawn and my neighbor felt like they
Yeah.
needed to say something, I'd be like, shut up.
Yeah.
They're fine.
Yeah.
You're not the...
The poo police.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So we got home, printed the city bylaw, highlighted the exact wording that states we can legally let our dogs poop anywhere.
Yeah.
On anybody's open property.
Yeah.
As long as we pick it up.
Yeah.
And we mailed it to him.
And what did you put on the outside of the envelope?
Lindsay may or may not have drawn a poop emoji. We sent it with no return address. We used a little Christmas stamp and we mailed it.
Yeah.
Because we were going to drop it off and then we're like, no, because if he sees us, like.
Yeah, no, mail
But
it.
sir, you're in the wrong here.
Absolutely. Go back in your house, watch your stories, and shut up.
Yeah, he was just so angry. And I just
Yeah.
felt, like we are, and there are some neighbors that have those little like decorative signs that say no poop zone or please don't pee on my petunias.
Right.
Great. We make a conceited effort to like not let our dogs go on that grass.
Yeah.
We are very responsible. We
Yeah.
don't, and also, should we let him poop on the concrete sidewalk? Because
Yeah.
that's going to be a lot messier.
Yeah.
And we're not going to be able to pick it all up and someone is going to walk over it.
Yeah.
And that's gross.
Yeah.
Or should we walk around with some sort of contraption and
Attached to the butt.
yeah, or like, and then we like dive in and get
Yeah.
it as it falls.
Yeah.
But he
No.
couldn't give us an answer.
Because he's an idiot.
I got real fired up about it.
Yeah, that's really frustrating.
But that's really the most exciting thing that's happened to me all week.
The only thing that happened to me was that I had to go to urgent care again with my oldest.
Oy
Because
vey.
they
Yeah.
have terrible impulses and punched a desk.
Yeah. Like being 13 is hard, full stop.
Yeah.
But being 13, when you're like trying to figure yourself out and like your dad died, and there's a lot going on here.
Everyone at work, they just need a punching bag in their room. I'm like, no, they need a portable punching bag. Like one in their locker or something.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Didn't AC Slater have one in his locker? He
Probably.
would open it. I just visualized
Yeah,
him,
Saved by
like,
the Bell.
punching
Yeah.
a punching bag in his locker.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was fun, but
Oh, man.
it's interesting. It's interesting to watch a triage process like in the ER, like in urgent care, because we got there and there were like quite a few people waiting and there were quite a few people in front of us. It was like 2.5 hour wait, but I didn't think that we would get seen very quickly because it's just potential broken hand. It was
Not life-threatening.
it's like it ended up being a hairline fracture. So I was like, oh, we'll be here forever. But
Yeah.
we were called before some people like in the waiting room. So it's interesting. It's like, are you people just coming in because you have the sniffles or like a little cough or,
I
you know?
really think, especially with urgent care, they look at how quickly they can get somebody through.
Maybe.
And if you are complaining that you might have broken your hand, they know you're going to need x-rays, so they
Yeah.
can get you in. The doctor sends you for x-rays.
Yeah, no, that's
And
true.
while you're getting x-rays, they can see. I think it's a balancing act.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, we don't have a lot else to talk about. We have a Patreon this week.
Oh, yeah.
I'm super stoked about it.
Tell me about it.
You're just like everybody else listening
I am.
right now.
Tell me.
So I got to talk to our friend Julie. She has a podcast called The Resting Bitch Face Pod.
Mm-hmm.
And we've interviewed her a couple of times on our Patreon about some like crazy stories she's been through.
Yeah.
And she just recently had weight loss surgery.
Oh,
Yeah. And she had just a really great experience.
Mm-hmm.
And it's changed her whole outlook on her body image and her struggles with eating and
Yeah.
all this stuff. And I just thought it was really interesting because we also interviewed somebody on our main feed last year who back in the 80s had experimental weight loss surgery
and it
did not go well. And then her and I got talking about maybe a little collaboration that we might do. Maybe we'll make an extra tier on our Patreon. And once a month, we will get together with a bunch of other podcasters and actually video record
Yes.
over wine. We'll bring up specific, like different topics, like those Reddit articles that are like, am I the asshole?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I think that's such a good idea. We could even have people like write in
Yeah.
too with like anonymous questions or something like that. I think that would be awesome. That means I'm going to have to start liking wine, isn't it?
No, we could just call it Wet Wednesdays.
Oh.
I don't know, wet your whistle Wednesdays? That's better. Wet your whistle.
Wet Wednesday. Yikes.
No, that's for our
I
OnlyFans.
do. Oh, yes. That
Yeah.
is I do rosé, so I could probably rosé all day.
Rosé all
I
day.
could.
Yeah, I think it could be really fun.
I
And
think so too.
yeah. We also are going to be adding an extra bonus. So, okay, we should.
Back up the truck.
What the heck is a Patreon?
OMG. It is a subscription service where you get extra content from us.
How much extra content?
So much.
Like, how many a month?
Like 2.
Two extra episodes a
2
month?
extra episodes. So you get 1 a week on our regular feed and 2 a month on our Patreon.
Well, that's wild.
That's too much.
Like,
I
how
think we
much
should
does this
stop.
cost? This sounds too expensive.
$5 freaking dollars.
Whoa. Or $8 if you want a little extra.
Yeah.
And on this X, so you can pay $5 and you get 2, I say ad-free episodes. It's not like we have ads, but we don't talk about the Patreon on it. So
There we go.
it is ad-free.
We're not going to harass you about joining our Patreon because you're already on it.
You're already there. At $8, you get 2 entries into every draw that we do.
Mm-hmm.
You get the episodes 1 or 2 days early, depending on how on top of things I am.
Yes.
And we're going to be adding a virtual drinks.
Like hangout.
Virtual hangout quarterly.
Yeah.
So if you've ever wanted to just like chit chat with us over Google Meet or Skype or
Whatever.
some other service,
don't think
I don't
Skype's
know.
a
Yeah,
thing
I don't know.
anymore.
Something.
Zoom.
Zoom,
Yeah.
then that's going to be where it's at.
I love that. And
Yeah.
we should do like, we could do little things like fun games or like trivia or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, I love this.
I do. I do too. I love that journey for us.
Yeah, and for anybody who's going to join.
Absolutely.
Anyway, let's get on with today's episode.
Let's.
It is wild. It is titled after one of my favorite shows, Who the Bleep Did I Marry?
Yes.
What would you do if you were married to somebody and you found out that there was a chance that they murdered somebody?
I would call Dateline and I would ask to speak to Keith Morrison immediately so that
Yes.
I could have him interview me.
Yeah.
That would be number 1.
Yeah.
Number 2, I'd call the police.
Yeah, I feel, yeah, that's tricky. I'm going to ask you after the episode in our outro if you think that he did it or not.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, let's get into it.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Hello, Julie.
Hey, how are y'all?
We're good. How are you?
I'm good this morning. Happy Mother's Day.
Yeah, happy Mother's Day. We booked this recording and then we're like, oh, shoot, it's Mother's Day. So we really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today.
No problem.
How's your day going? Have you gotten spoiled or has anybody acknowledged Mother's Day for you?
Yes, so my 2 youngest that still live at home, ages 10 and 12, they got me some mixing bowls, some cute little baskets, some drawings, and brought me muffins and coffee in bed. It was great.
Oh,
That's so sweet.
yeah, that's really nice.
I got woken up at about 6 a.m. with a blaring tablet in my ear.
Oh, God.
Tried to go back to sleep and was like woken up multiple different times for multiple different reasons.
Oh, goodness.
I know,
No.
motherhood's a gift.
It
Motherhood
is.
a-
Great.
Yes. I'm going to say I don't miss those days.
Yeah.
We are super excited to chat with you. We started talking forever ago when we found you online and your story. You had given it some time, given it some thought, and then when you were ready, you reached out and we were so stoked to hear from you. So why don't we have you introduce yourself? Maybe tell us a little bit about you and your family, and then we'll get into the topic at hand.
All right, sounds good. I am 45 years old. I live in Georgia. I'm the mother of 5 beautiful kids, ages ranging from 26 all the way down till 10. I have 1 granddaughter that's 5. I've been married to my current husband. We've been together 7 years, but we've only been married for 2. He's been a huge blessing because my life has been a complete roller coaster. I don't even think I grew up until I was 40. And we're here today talking about my ex-husband and what I went through with that. And I got on TikTok and I did those videos, and because my older kids were like, get your story out there, tell it. And I did. And I kind of retracted back a little bit because I got a lot of backlash, his family, and trying to make me feel bad about it. And my older kids were like, Mom, this is your story to tell. Don't worry about what other people think. That's where I'm at with that.
Wow. The video originally that we saw was about how you married a murderer, basically.
Yes.
It sounds like the plot to that TV show, Who the Bleep Did I Marry?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. That's what it felt like.
Yeah. So I don't know, where's the best place to start? Maybe how you guys met?
And before I give that, let's just remember I was in my 20s when we met.
Oh,
Very
we
smart
don't
in
make,
20s.
we don't make any good choices in our 20s, I think.
I worked in a convenience store as a second job. I've done home health off and on for 20 years before I left, and I would work convenience store on the weekends. And he came in with some of his friends. You could tell he had been drinking. They had all been drinking. And most guys in their early 20s, what do they do on the weekends when they're single? They go out, they party, they drink. So I was used to seeing that where I worked. And he kept coming in. He would make comments to me and stuff, and I would ignore him. And one day he came in. I usually worked third. And so this day I had to do a turnaround shift. I worked third, then had to come back in for second shift. And he happened to come in and he asked for my phone number. And I told him I didn't have a phone. And this is right when cell phones were getting really popular, 2004. And he was like, I saw you talking on a cell phone. And so I felt stupid. And I had a long line of people behind him. So I just jotted my number down real quick and I was like, here, go. And he called and we met up and talked. And he seemed like a really great guy. One thing that really stuck with me was that night he said, I don't know, there's just something about you. I just want to take care of you for the rest of your life.
Oh.
And going through a bad relationship before and having insecurities, women fall for stuff like that. And I fell hard. So that's how we met. And we were pretty much inseparable every day. He moved in after 3 weeks. We got married after 26 days.
Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And was your family supportive?
My father was definitely like, this is too fast. My mom is probably my number one fan, even though I have given her grief my whole entire life. And she tries to be supportive no matter what I decide to do. Occasionally she will voice her opinion, but at the time she just kept saying, you just seem really happy. If this is what works for you, do it.
Aw.
And his family was more of the ones that were going, what's going on? This is way too quick. And it was things I started finding out throughout this time after I married him that I realized I'd made the biggest mistake of my life.
And have you said how old was he?
He was 25 when we married and I was 27.
Okay.
I am now 45.
Wow. And what were some of the things that started happening where you were like, oh no?
Okay, so we got married at the courthouse the day we got married, and we decided to have a reception so our families could get together 2 months later. So we did that. It was fun. And at the reception, he got really intoxicated and was just doing off the wall stuff. And I was like, it was dinging on me. What did I do? And then during this time, getting to know his family, because most of his family came, I found out that he was in a relationship when he met me.
Oh.
It was his son's mother. And we had that conversation. He told me that she had moved off to California and that his mom and her mom helped take care of his son. And then he got him on the weekends. And I came to find out later she was on vacation in California visiting his family and came home to find out he was with me.
Oh no.
Yeah, that was devastating. And those thoughts keep going through your head. What did I do?
Yeah.
What did I do?
Mm-hmm.
He cheated not too long after that, and the drinking just kept going and kept progressing.
I find that so interesting. I married a total sociopath, and that's what they do.
bless.
Like, they're so charming and they find somebody who's so vulnerable. And I was insecure, mid-20s, everybody was getting married, and he just picked everything that I needed in a person and was that, and moved the relationship along so fast that by the time I started to see red flags, I was like we already live together, so I'll forgive this, we'll work through it. And it just snowballs.
Yes, it does. Yes. My main thing that kept sticking through my head is because I had already been divorced once. And I was like, I don't want to be like my parents, because both my parents have been married and divorced several times. And I'm like, I'm going to make this marriage work one way or another. I do not want another divorce. And I
Right.
stayed married to him for almost, I think it was 12 or 13 years.
Wow.
Did you have any inkling on his family, what you were in for? Did they warn you about anything?
Well, ironically enough, I knew one of his sisters, and I did not know that was his sister. I grew up off and on in a small town because my mom and stepdad were military. So I split time between my real father and my mom and my stepfather. And I had went to school 7th, 8th grade and 9th and 10th with one of his sisters, and we were really close friends. And I hadn't seen her in years because she had gotten married and moved away. And I had the kids one day, we were going to the movies and we stopped at Dollar General to grab some snacks, and I walked in and I saw her and I was like, oh my goodness. And we just had a quick conversation, catching up and everything. And she was asking me how I was doing. And I was telling her that I just got married and I had moved to this small town that was probably about 30 minutes from the town that we had lived in. She was like, that's wild. My brother just got married and moved to that same town. And I was like, I didn't know you had a brother. And she was like, yeah. He was a few years younger than me. And she said, I couldn't stand him. So she said, not many of my friends knew that I had a brother.
Oh, wow.
And she told me his name. And I was like, you've got to be kidding. That's who I just married.
Oh my
And
God.
And she flat out said, she was like, you just made the biggest mistake of your life. I was like, what do you mean by that? And she started telling me about the ex, which by then I had found out that she really didn't live in California. And then she told me that he drank a lot and stayed in trouble a lot. And by this time I had only seen it maybe twice. And it's crazy because she acted like she could not stand her brother most of our marriage. But when he ended up going to jail for all that, she all of a sudden had his back, and her brother would never.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
And you had mentioned kids. Did you guys have kids together, or did you each have kids from your first relationships?
We both had kids from our first relationship. I was wild when I was younger. So I had 2 children by 2 different guys. My oldest daughter, she lived with me full time, and my son went to live with his father when he had moved back here from Florida. So they could spend time together and bond and everything. And he came down for the holidays and he was there every weekend and that kind of stuff. But he adopted my oldest daughter a few more years down the line. And it was because he loved her. He treated her like a daughter, and I wanted her and I to have the same last name because I didn't want her to feel like the third wheel and left out because her name was different. And her biological father was not a father to her at all. And then he had one child, and that child was from the relationship that he was in before he met me.
What was he like as a dad?
Actually, for the most part, with my daughter, he was a great dad to her. He was never bad to the kids at all. He was a good father to his son as well. It's just he didn't spend a whole lot of time because she would hold grudges and she would get mad, and she was the type that if she's mad at you, you can't see the child kind of thing. Right. It was a weird relationship with her as well because she wanted me right there as her best friend, and if she and I had any kind of fallen out or had any problems, I wasn't allowed to see my stepson. And I was very close to my stepson because I came into his life right when he turned 3.
Oh.
And I had a better relationship with him than he did with his dad because as the story goes on, you'll find out his dad was in and out of jail a lot for drinking. I was very close to him, and I played that part as her friend and did what she wanted to for the sacrifice of a child because I loved that child like I loved my own.
Oh.
She was there for every family function we ever had through my whole entire marriage.
Wow.
Everyone. It was fun.
Yeah. And so when did things start to go from like bad to worse? So he was drinking, he was cheating.
Yes, we were married probably 2.5 months. I think it was like the weekend or 2 weekends after our reception that we had. He cheated the first time. He worked for his family. His family was into computer stuff. And I don't know if y'all know this, there's a lot of gold in computers. And they would break down these huge computer systems that like came out of Navy ships, and they're huge tall towers, and there's a lot of money in that. And so he had opportunity to get away with a lot of stuff because he's working with family. And he got drunk at work one day, and she showed up, and I think she was fussing about child support or something, and he ended up going off with her and spent the night with her. And I was devastated, and I wanted to end it there. And his sister, not the one that I knew, but his other sister, she was like, you have every right to divorce him. Matter of fact, if I was in your shoes, I probably would. But she did that out of spite, when he was intoxicated. She said, don't let that B word win. And I was like, we'll see. And so the next day I met up with him, and of course she showed up too. And it was at his mother's house. And I was like, I think we should just end this and everything. And he was like, can we go somewhere and talk, just to talk for a minute? And before we even pulled out of the driveway, he was like, I'm so sorry. I made the biggest mistake of my life. I was drinking. That's no excuse. But she was telling me I would never see my son again, and just on and on. He was like, I can't stand her. I love you. And so I was like, okay, this is your one chance, and then we're done if you do it again.
Guys are the worst.
Yeah. And I was stupid, and I just kept on and kept doing it.
Well, and especially because, like you said, you didn't want to be that statistic of getting another divorce. And I think because we want that, we overlook so much.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah. And this time that he cheated, or was he unfaithful again?
Oh, yes. He was unfaithful again several times throughout our marriage. And once it happened a couple of more times, then I was like, okay, if you're going to do it, I'm going to do it too, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of times we didn't live in the same household as well. I would get mad at him and get tired of the drinking because it was so much. He would go to jail for DUIs. He would go to jail for violation of probation because he got in trouble for public drinking. And it was just something constant. He would go to jail for 6 months at a time, 3 months at a time. We were married for almost 12 or 13 years. And I kid you not, 75 to 80% of that time, I think he was in jail.
Wow.
Wow.
So,
Did you visit him in jail?
oh yeah, I did. I was there for every visit. I answered every phone call. And it was kind of like having a husband that worked out of town. When they finally get out, you're excited to see them, but you get to do your own thing most of the time. And I wonder if that's why I stayed married for so long, because he wasn't home.
Yeah.
That's true.
Wow.
I guess he never learned his lesson in terms of the drinking and driving.
No.
Did he lose his job with his family, or did they just keep hiring him back?
Eventually, he did lose his job with his family because they just got tired of it. But he had an uncle, I should say. He passed away a few years ago. And this uncle was very good to me. He was like a father to me. And he was the same to my husband as well. He supported a lot of the family financially. I don't have a huge understanding about that. I just know that my husband had an allowance every single week, whether he was working or not. We were always financially taken care of. And when my husband was incarcerated, that money was given to me to get the bills paid and stuff, which I would work, of course, but we never went without ever because of this
Wow.
uncle. He had bought me cars and he just made sure that I was taken care of. I owe a lot to him. And when he passed away, it broke my heart. But of course, the family didn't want me there.
What was his family like with all these incarcerations? Were they just like, oh, that's him? Or was that something that other people in his family experienced as well?
Nobody visited him in jail except for me and his mom. Of course, you know how moms are with their sons. They do no wrong. His family was forgiving for the most part, and most of the time, yeah, it's just him, yada, yada, yada. And his sisters would back me. They'd be, I don't know why you stay married to him, or you should find somebody else and stuff. But in the end, when I finally did, they got upset about it, and we'll
Oh
get
my
to that
God.
eventually. But one sister, both sisters actually have called the police on him several times for him showing out at their houses. And one sister had bought in a new house and moved and didn't even want him knowing the address because he would just do the most ridiculous things. And when he drank, he could be violent, and he just did wild, I don't know. When I think back on it and I tell these stories and and I talk about it, I just think back to how ridiculous I must look because I did stay for so long. And then I think back and I look and I'm like, what was wrong with you? Why didn't you run?
Yeah. But like when you're in it, you just, I don't know, like somehow you just stay in it. It's so crazy.
Because like if your friend came to you and was like, oh, my husband has a drinking problem and he's in jail all the time, and you would tell that friend to get out, right? But when it's you, it's like you said, it's just you excuse it or you make up reasons why to stay. You just don't see it from an outside perspective.
Yeah.
And I think you get used to living in the drama and the chaos.
Yes. Yeah. It starts to feel comfortable.
Yes, which is a scary thing. My relationship now is 100% different, and it's so quiet and it's peaceful and it's content and it's so different and it's great. It is great. It took me a long time to adjust.
Yeah. It's so funny how safe seems boring when
Yeah.
you've been in such a tumultuous relationship. What happens next? How do you go from DUIs and being a low life to murdering?
Let me backtrack because this will make you understand a little better. The murder that happened before we were together, and this should have been a big eye opener for me, but it was not because I actually listened to him. And not too long after we got married, I was at work and one of my good friends came in that I had not seen in a couple of years. And she's, what are you doing now? And I told her I was married, and she asked to who, and her eyes got really big. And she said, that's that guy that was the suspect in that murder to that girl at Walmart. And I was like, what? And she said, yeah, you don't remember me telling you about that a long time ago? And I'm like, no. So she tells me that. And as soon as I got off work and I got a hold of him, I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
And he was like, no, that gave me a bad reputation. I was called in for questioning. Everybody says I look like the sketch. He was like, I do not, but I thought it was funny. So I just went along with it and said, yeah, I did it. He said, try to be funny. He was like, so that's all that was. And it gave me a bad reputation and I don't want to talk about it. And I was was like, okay. So I tell my sister about it because my sister is pretty much my best friend throughout my whole life. We get caught up in our own lives and we might not talk for a little bit, but my sister has my back all the time. But this time I was at her house a lot and I was telling her about it. And she was like, call the police station and ask. And I was like, okay, good idea. So I call and I asked to speak to an investigator. And of course, they want to know why. And I tell them that I'm married to this guy that was a suspect in the murder. And I was like, I want to know why he was a suspect. I'm married to him. I have 2 kids and I need to know what the deal is.
Yeah.
And so they were like, well, can I get your phone number? I want to call you back and we'll discuss it. And I never heard anything else from it. And so I was like, okay, so maybe it was nothing because I didn't hear anything else. And
Yeah.
this was in 2004 when we got married. And it wasn't brought back up until 2006 when investigators did come talk to me and wanted to ask me questions. 2006 was a very bad year for me. His drinking was very heavy. We had just moved into a new house because we would get evicted a lot because of his drinking and we moved a lot. And he was on one of his binges. We had split up. He left us right before Christmas. So I was distraught about that. I was working by myself, raising the kids, and an investigator had gotten in touch with me and wanted to know, they actually showed up at my work and wanted to know if they could talk to me and ask me a few questions. And I
Oh,
was like, yeah, sure. This is where his family starts to hate me for a little while. They call me in and, they want to ask me questions and what he's ever said about it. They wanted to know what our life was like and what our sex life was like, just questions like that. They wanted to know if I would take a recording device and start recording our phone calls when I talked to him.
oh my God.
Yes. And then one night they had me meet him at a restaurant because we were split up at this time, but he kept calling, wanting me to meet up with him. And he was always intoxicated when he wanted to meet up with me. And so one night he had called me and asked to meet up with me, and I let the investigators know. And I just thought this was the weirdest thing ever. And not the meeting up, but what happens. And I go to meet him. They put a recorder in my purse and they're like, just keep it close to you so we can get everything and stuff. And I'm like, okay. And the investigators were in the restaurant because at this time they had me convinced I was married to a murderer. And I'm like, if this was my daughter, sister, or whatever, I would want to know the truth.
Yeah.
And I'm a nervous wreck and I'm sitting there. And so I go meet him at Longhorn. He comes up to the car. He gets in the car with me for a minute and he was like, so today I was going down the road and got pulled over. And he doesn't even have a driver's license, so he must have been with somebody else. He said, and they asked me to get out of the car and started asking me questions about that murder. And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah. And so we get out of the car, we go in the restaurant, we're sitting there and we're sitting at the bar in front of all these people. And he starts going into this elaborate story of what happened. And he tells me that he did kill her.
What?
And that she wanted it. And I can't remember word for word of what all he said. I just know that I was sitting there in shock. I was sick to my stomach and just wanted to get out of there. So after a while of him saying all this crazy off the wall stuff, I'm just like, I gotta go.
And are you just like, oh, okay.
I'm just looking at him and I'm just looking at him and I'm not really believing anything he's saying. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm like, talk. And I'm like, I don't believe you. I said, you're making this up. And he was like, no. But a part of me wants to believe that when he drank, he wanted to intimidate people because that's the persona he would put off.
Right.
And so I always wondered if that's just what it was. He was just feeding off of this and playing a game with everybody. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You would have to know him to understand where I'm coming from on this. And I just make an excuse to get out of there. I meet up with the investigators. I give them the recorder and I'm like, I just need to be left alone for a little while. Just leave me alone. Come to find out the recording didn't take.
Oh,
Now,
no.
yes. And so now they want to talk me into having to take recorder in my car with him in my car. So again, I do this because he calls me late at night, wanting me to come pick him up from a bar, and I do it. And so I start asking questions this time. And again, I could not tell you what all was said because this is so many years ago. But he's sitting there saying he did it. And it was just crazy. And I was scared. And I'm thinking in my head, I've watched too many police shows. Okay, so they can arrest him now. I'm like trying to get him out of my car so they can arrest him and this can all be over with. And that's not the way it works.
Do the police at any time give you any advice on what to say? And are they trailing you to make sure that you don't get murdered?
Yes, they are trailing me and they're calling me on my cell phone. I was pretending I was talking to my dad.
Oh, okay.
And they would tell me, ask this, ask that, or pull into such and such kind of thing. And it was a long night. I had to go sit with the woman so she could transcribe everything that he had said.
I'm glad to hear that the police were trailing you because this feels it could have gone very wrong. Who are you to just sit in a car and have to ask these questions and get a confession recorded? And now you're probably wondering, is the recording even working? Because it didn't work the last time.
Yes, I was just ready to get all that over with, and it was stressful and I was panicking, and I had to go into the police department, I think, for a couple of days straight because they needed to transcribe everything he was saying. It was embarrassing because I had to go through some of the stuff he was saying to me about our personal life and stuff. And so after all this happens and everything, I happened to be at home and I was watching the movie Mystic River. Have y'all seen that movie?
No.
Yes, yeah. That's good.
Okay. You know how she's convinced that her husband did that?
Yeah.
And he really didn't do it. And
Yeah.
then he ends up, okay. That's how I saw that movie. And I was like, is that a sign from God? What am I doing? And I felt guilt just come over me. And I'm like, oh, they had me convinced that he really did this and they needed to get him. And so I confessed to him everything I did.
Ooh.
And I just let him know. I was like, I've been recording our phone calls. There was a recorder in the car that night. I told him everything.
Oh, no.
Wow.
I did. And he didn't seem so upset with me, but his family was viciously mad. And I'm sure if it was my family, maybe I would feel the same way. I don't know. It was a mess. So I packed all my stuff up and I moved to Tennessee. I just left the state of Georgia and moved to Tennessee. I had a friend that lived out there and was like, you need to get away from that mess, come up here, get a good job, start your life over. And I was like, good idea.
Yeah.
And I did. I lived up there for, I think it was like a year and a half, almost 2 years. I was doing great. I had a great job. I lived in a condo on the top of a mountain. I had a new car. I was living life and it was great. And he weaseled his way back in. And I missed him dearly for some god awful reason.
So was he arrested in this time?
No, for that, no. Mm-mm.
Wow.
He was arrested for being drunk again, as usual.
Right.
He was arrested for probably more DUIs and violation of probation and stuff like that. But for the murder, no, he was not arrested for it at that time. I did receive a phone call while I was living in Tennessee that while he was in jail for a violation of probation, they came in and the FBI did a lie detector test on him. And it wasn't the typical lie detector test that you hook up to check your heart rate and stuff. It was a voice detection lie detector test. And so they did that on him and he failed it.
Wow.
So yeah. And I was like, so I started Googling how good are these lie detector tests and stuff. And they were like, they don't like to use them in courts. They're not always that accurate, yada. And, and I did love him at that time and I missed him and he wanted to come up and see me and he did. And he created a lot of problems while he was there. And I ended up moving back to Georgia with him.
What did you tell your kids at the time?
My son didn't know anything about it, didn't have any clue about it. My daughter knew bits and pieces. I tried to keep as much away from her as possible. But I think she was 10 or 11 at that time. She started wetting the bed for a little while. And I was like, I wonder if it was because of the stress and everything.
Yeah.
Plus, I was so distraught because he and our relationship at this time, and this was before I left to go to Tennessee, and I just quit talking about it if she was present at all.
Yeah.
And tried to keep that part out of her life. But I was not the perfect mother. I made a lot of mistakes along the way. She brings stuff up to me that she remembers and she talks about it. She definitely points out where I made mistakes.
And you move back with him.
Mm-hmm.
Are people just like, Julie, you're crazy?
My mom, she was like, I can't believe you're taking him back and coming back. She was really the only person that voiced it out of my family. A few of my friends said stuff and his family wasn't happy that he got back with me, but they got over it and we worked through it and everything. One of his sisters I was super, super close to. She was like one of my best friends and his family was like my family, especially when you're married to somebody for so long. I believe I loved his family probably more than I loved him. That's one thing that hit my daughter hard was when all this came to a head, losing family.
Yeah, that's hard. Did his family try to keep a relationship with her or no?
After everything was said and done, no. And they said some really ugly stuff to her. And it was because she was taking my side on it. Because his family blames me for him going to jail for this.
Right.
Because I talked to the police. I went along with what they asked me to do and stuff. And they blamed it on me. So everything dies down. We don't hear anything about it. Our lives go on. For a while, it gets better, but then he's still in and out of jail for the same old stuff. 2010, the police are coming around again. They seem to find my phone number every time I change it or anything. I felt like they were keeping tabs on me. So they called me in and asked if they could talk to me. And I straight up told my husband, I was like, they contacted me. They want to talk to me. How are you feeling about it? He goes, go up there. I want to know what they're saying. And I was like, okay. So I went and I talked to them, and they told me that for me to tell him that they wanted to offer him a plea deal if he would just turn himself in. And a plea deal, like, really, what evidence do y'all have? What?
Yeah.
Y'all are going to have to give me something more, because now I just don't believe that. And I didn't want to believe. And to this day, I still have tons of questions that are never going to get answered. And they were like, once he's indicted, we'll be able to tell you everything you want to know. And I'm like, I don't know what else to say. There's nothing else I can say. And they said, we just want you to do one more thing for us. And the FBI wants to do an FBI profile on him. They want to do it questioning you.
What is an FBI profile?
It's where they ask me tons and tons of questions about him all through his whole life. What I know about his childhood, about our marriage, even questions to how he treats animals. And most sociopaths and serial killers and stuff like that are really not animal lovers. They usually start harming animals before it goes to people.
Right.
He was not that type of person. He loved animals more than he loved people. Like, he was a huge animal lover. And so I was like, sure, I'll do it. Honestly, with all my answers, I thought it was going to turn out great. No. So from this profile, which I never did get to read, I was just told that sounds like the profile that would fit the killer. It was just one thing after another. And this is 2010. We don't hear anything else, nothing else after that until 2014. And in 2014, things had changed a lot for us. We had been through more cheating. We had been through a lot of headaches, a lot of pain. At this time, I had been diagnosed with cancer. That was a scary thing for me. And he was not there for me. I think it was right after I found out that something was wrong and I could possibly be sick. He got arrested for a DUI.
Oh,
jeez.
Yes. And I flat out told him, I'm done. That is it.
yeah.
I have been here for you through everything. At one time, we even sold everything we owned and moved to California to put him in a rehab.
Oh, wow.
And and he lasted in that rehab, I think 3 weeks before he quit. And he had been in other rehabs too and stuff. And it was just a horrible, rocky marriage from the get-go. By this time, I was tired. I was stressed. I was tired. I was over it. And I was ready to move on. And I was probably in the darkest place of my life. So I had all the testing done. I found out I had cancer. I went through 2 surgeries with that. I went through treatments, and he was not there for any of it. He was in jail.
Did he care? Was he concerned about you?
Of course, when he's in jail and he's talking on the phone, of course he sounds concerned. Of course he's going to change. It was the same conversation I had every time for the last 12 years. At this time, I just didn't care. I just did not care. My daughter was grown by now. She was a senior in high school. And I had always told her that I was waiting until she graduated high school and then I was leaving him.
Yeah.
And so I think she would have been fine if I would have left a lot sooner. But I was, and at that time, Facebook was a big thing and stuff. And I had met somebody on Facebook that was a great person for me to talk to, someone that I could confide in, that I became friends with, and I started hanging out with. And we talked on the phone for months before I was even able to carry on with a normal life, because I was in the bed for a long time with depression and being sick with the cancer and the treatment and stuff and the surgeries. And so I confided in this person and we started hanging out and we developed feelings. And I think I was just in a bad place. And so I was looking for somebody to latch on to. When he got out of jail on our anniversary. I think it was our 10th anniversary. And he got out of jail like the day before. And I'm like, I don't want this marriage to work. I said, but I'm going to give you one chance this weekend. We'll see how things go. I said, but I'm ready to end things. So we spent the weekend together it was awkward. Neither one of us really spoke to each other that much. And my mind was somewhere else. And I guess his was too. And so the next day, it was his son's birthday. And we went and got him a weight bench for his birthday because he was turning 13. And my ex-husband, he was into bodybuilding. He wanted his son to be the same. And we went over there and we dropped it off. And the mother of his son is the one I told you that I stayed friends with. And she and I were hanging out and everything, and we were talking, and we decided to leave and go hang out and let him spend time with his son. And the stepdad was there too. And when we got back, he was drunk. He was so drunk.
No.
And I was like, you can't even spend one day with your son without getting drunk. You've been out of jail for 3 days.
Uh,
And so we get in the car to leave. And on the way home, he tells me he doesn't want to be with me anymore either, that he doesn't want to be with somebody that's sick. He doesn't feel like dealing with that.
what?
And I was
Like after
sounds
everything that you
yes.
did.
Yep. I said, it sounds good. I said, sounds good. So I called my stepson's mother and I told her, I said, can Marley come stay with you for a few days so I can get things figured out? She's like, absolutely. And like I said, my daughter was a senior in high school. And so she wouldn't stay with her for a few days. I packed the bag and I went and stayed with the person that I had been talking to. And I ended up getting really sick. My levels were way off and stuff. And I came home for a day. I went and picked my daughter up and we went home. And I walked in the house and I looked at him. He was sober when I looked at him. I said, I don't feel good. I'm sick. I'm going to bed. Do not come in our room. Do not talk to me. I'm not here. And so the next day I woke up, my daughter was at school and everything. And I went into the living room and I looked throughout the house and he was nowhere to be found. And I was like, that's weird. And I found his wallet and cell phone on the table, but he was nowhere to be found. Come to find out, while I was asleep that night, he had went to jail.
Oh,
How does that happen?
like he was out and got arrested and went to jail?
No, he had gotten into it with our neighbor, and the neighbor called the police on him, and he got arrested.
Oh, jeez.
My God.
Yes.
They must have just had like a permanent cell for him, like every time he came back.
Yes. And they knew him so well there.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So a few more months go by, and the police contact me, and they let me know that things are fixing to start moving and things are going to happen, and want to know if I can come in and talk to them. And at this time, I was avoiding trying to come in and talk to them. Like I just didn't want to. But I did go in and he's like, I just wanted to let you know up front, things are going to start moving ahead and I want you to prepare yourself and get ready. And I was like, what does that mean? And they're like, the time has come. And they were like, it's going to go before the grand jury and we're going to see if we can get an indictment for him. And I was like, okay. I really didn't think anything else about it because this has went on my whole marriage. It had been 14 years since the murder. I'm just like, whatever. I don't believe anything anybody says anymore. And I was supposed to go to the police department. I think it was a Tuesday at 10:30 in the morning. And I called and I was like, can I come later today? I have things to do. And my daughter's graduating this week. She has senior stuff. And he was like, yeah, he was like, I'm going to call you in about an hour because I need to talk to you. And before he could call me back, my husband had been indicted. It was all over the news. And I was so upset and so distraught because my daughter was graduating high school in 2 days. Everybody knew who her dad was. And I threw a fit. I was like, y'all couldn't have waited 2 days. You couldn't have waited 2 more days. And I've got a lot of heat for that, for saying that on my YouTube channel, that I was being selfish for saying that. And I was like, no, he was already in jail. He was already sitting in jail. They could have waited 2 days to announce that indictment. The victim had been gone for 14 years at this point. Yes, she needs to get her justice, but 2 days wouldn't have hurt anybody.
Yeah.
So that happened and I was upset. I took my anger out, on the police and stuff. And I just felt like at the moment, I guess I felt like I needed to be there for him because I'd always been there for him. I did go for a visitation. We did talk. First time I'd ever seen him cry. And he broke down and cried and said, I didn't do this. And
even though he admitted to it, even though he failed the FBI thing.
He broke down and cried and he said he didn't do it. And he's not the type of person to cry, period. And so from there, I went straight to the police department and I was like, you told me you would give me any answer I wanted after you indicted him. So it's time for you to answer my questions.
Yeah.
So he pulled me in a room and there's a sketch of him. And they had asked me if I thought he looked like the sketch. And I said, no, absolutely not. My husband was drop dead gorgeous when he was in his 20s. And the sketch, chunkier version of him, like maybe it favored him now because we're 14 years later, but it did not look like him at all when he was in his 20s. Right. And so I was like, my question for you is, the person that gave you the description for that sketch, was my husband ever put in a lineup for that person to pick my husband out of a lineup? And he said, yes. Sam was put in a lineup for that person to pick him out of a lineup. I said, did that person pick my husband in that lineup? They said no. I said, that's all I need to know. I'm out. I would not
Wow.
testify against him in court. The reason I continued to stay married to him until after the trial was because if you were married to the
Oh,
suspect,
yeah.
Spousal
you
privilege.
cannot testify against them, and they could
Right.
not use anything I had said in the past against him. But his family didn't think about that. They didn't think about why I was still married to him, even though I tried to explain it. They didn't think about they couldn't use any of that stuff that I had said before and that I was doing this, so I wouldn't be brought into it. They would have to use whatever they had without me because I didn't want to be the reason someone went to prison if they didn't do it. Because I still had tons of questions because the type of person he was, yes, when he drank, he was a completely different person. He was a horrible person. He was a monster when he drank.
Mhm.
When he was sober, he was the nicest person you would ever meet. And he did not like confrontation at all. Like if I was to raise my voice in Walmart, he'd walk off because he just doesn't like confrontation. He doesn't like attention drawn to him. He was a very quiet person and he drank. I feel like he drank to open up, to be fun, relaxed kind of thing, but it made him a different person. Like I could tell a change in his demeanor after one or two beers. I could look at him and tell he had been drinking just after one or two.
Wow.
He just had this void look in his eyes and just completely different. And when he drinks, also, like automatically, his motor skills are off. It was almost like he was allergic to alcohol or something. You know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
so quick, he had drank his whole life, but so quickly it changed the person he was. So to myself, the whole story was she was supposedly abducted from our Walmart parking lot. She was pushed into a vehicle and she was kidnapped from that parking lot and then she was killed from there. So I'm trying to visualize my husband doing that. And it was hard for me because, first of all, I'm like, he doesn't like confrontation. But if he did it while he was drunk, yeah, I could probably see him doing something crazy like that when he was drunk. With his motor skills, could he get away with something that long? I feel like it would have been extra messy, like evidence would have been found, that kind of thing. When
Right.
it went to court, there was no murder weapon, there was no DNA, and there was no truck because they were after a red Nissan truck, and they swore that his uncle owned one at that time, but they never found it, and so there was nothing to tie him to it. They really didn't have any real evidence other than the things I had said, and a lot of other people had come forward and said that he told them. It wasn't just me. They had boxes and boxes and boxes of stuff where people had come in and said that he had told them stuff. So it wasn't just me. But he was offered that plea deal. He was offered a plea deal, 10 years for involuntary manslaughter. How do you go from murder to involuntary manslaughter? Because there's no way what happened to that girl was an accident. No
Right.
way.
Yeah.
So I asked the DA after everything was said and done, I was like, how did you give him that plea deal? That's what makes me think you had nothing. And he was like, because you weren't going to testify. A lot of the other witnesses that had testified on paper retracted their statements and didn't want to be a part of it.
Why did they not want to be part of it?
I don't know. I guess maybe they decided they didn't because I don't know. I know some of the people that had came forward, but I don't know a lot of them. It was people from when his past, when he was
Right.
younger, people that he thought were his friends and stuff. And drunk, he just thought he was Billy Badass and he could conquer the world and he wanted to intimidate everybody and let everybody to think he was the biggest, strongest everything. And that's the kind of vibe he gave off when he was drinking. But honestly, I could or could not tell you if he did it or not. I couldn't.
Wow. And so even to this day, you don't know.
I don't know.
I just
You
think,
know,
why would somebody admit or like confess
that
over
is
and
true.
over?
That is true.
But you hear it happening. And like you said, if he wanted to have a certain persona about him, like that he was a tough guy or that he was whatever, he could be telling people that he did this when he's drunk, when he's not in the right state of mind, when he didn't, right? Like just to
Right.
put off that don't mess with me persona.
Exactly.
Did he take the plea deal?
He did take the plea deal, and I asked him why. I only went to one court hearing. There was several. I only went to one, and I didn't want to listen to it. After I sat in there, I just didn't want to listen to anything else because the investigator flat out said while I was in the courtroom, he was not the number one suspect until his wife came forward.
Even though other people had said that.
Yes. And so my heart kind of
Wow.
sunk, and then I felt like all this was my fault. And
Right.
so I just didn't want to hear anymore. And then when I heard he was taking the plea deal, because I would still go visit from time to time at this time, but I was trying to move on with my life. And I would still accept some phone calls. He never once told me he was taking the plea deal. And after he did it, I asked him, I said, if you did not do that, why in the heck would you take the plea deal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And instead of going to trial, he's like, taking a plea deal for 10 years is better than going to prison for life.
Oh my
And
Yeah, like
that's
he must
God.
have
really,
felt like they had enough against him that it wouldn't go well with a trial.
I tried to explain to him, I was like, they don't have a murder weapon, they don't have DNA, and they don't have a truck. So what could they possibly use against you other than
Yeah.
you idiots telling all these people you did it? And he was like, I'm just taking the plea deal. But we're going to get to where he is in life today. And this is where, when he went to jail, there was still a lot there for me to process. And I felt bad at first. As time has went on, I feel like if he did do it, he's going to answer for it one day with God. And that's going to be his issue.
Yeah.
If he didn't do it, then he was sitting in there giving himself time to think of all the horrible things he's done in his life, to get himself back on track, to stop drinking, and to make a difference in his life. Because one or two things will happen in prison. You're going to change for the better or you're going to change for the worse.
Yeah, that's fair.
He only had to spend 5 years in prison, only 5 years. He got out 2 years ago. And this is where it gets even better. My sister that I've mentioned, we both have granddaughters. And my niece, I love her to death. She has been with this wonderful guy for many years. She's been with this guy since she was 15. They had a daughter together 2 years ago. And I've known this guy since he was a little bitty tyke. He was about 4 years old. And he's also been my son's best friend since he was like 4.
Oh, wow.
So my niece's fiance has been in our family for a long time and we love him to death. His mother, however, is who my ex-husband is with.
What?
Oh.
Yes. And I believe they're married. I'm not 100% sure, but they had put on social media that they were married. So that would make him the grandfather of my grandchild and the step grandfather of my sister's grandchild.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. Did he know
Yes,
that?
yes. And I felt like he did it on purpose. I got really angry with my family and my sister and my niece and everybody because we were all at the hospital for my great niece's birth. Everybody knew that he was getting out of prison in 2 days, but me. Everybody knew.
Oh no.
Nobody told me. I am a manager at a financial company, and one of my customers had came in and said, "So have you seen Sam?" And I was like, "What? No,
What?
he's in prison." And she was like, "No, he got out a few days ago."
Mm.
And I was like, "Oh my goodness." And I just got sick feeling just came over me because I had finally had all that out of my life. I
Yeah.
was starting to heal. I was doing better. And lo and behold, he showed up at my job
No.
and my coworker said, she's, "Are you okay? Your face just went really white. It looks like you've seen a ghost." And I was like, "I did."
Oh,
He showed up at my job a couple of times actually. He came in and he asked me how I was doing and held his hand out. And and I couldn't really even speak because I was just in shock. And he flat out told me, he was like, "You're my soulmate." "I'll be back for you."
oh,
So that kind of gave me the creeps. But he had my phone number from when he was in prison because I had the same phone number forever. And he started calling my phone. He would call my job. So I would get in touch with the woman he's with now, and I'd be like, "Look, you got to stop it. E- Either stop it or I'm going to take out a restraining order." And he ended up going back to jail
oh
for
no.
400 and something days. Yes, for meth and cocaine.
So he did not use his time in jail to get better.
No, he did
Ugh.
not. And he never did drugs before. So now he's doing drugs. And he spent 400 and something days in there. He got out. He went to a rehab for 30 days. He was out for a few months and he's back in jail. Another charge for meth and violation of parole because he's on parole now.
Do
So
you
no, he hasn't learned his lesson.
No. Do you just feel, is it so crazy because now you're in this good, healthy relationship, you've got your kids, to look back just feels like a whole other lifetime?
It seems like a bad dream.
Yeah.
And I'm sure everybody's wondering how I have 5 kids and I've only talked about 2 through this podcast. My husband now, I've been married a couple of times. He had 3 kids. Their mother abandoned them when they were young and she had a drug problem herself. So he and I related on that when we got together with being with addicts. And so I became their full-time mom when we got together. And I've been raising them for the last 7 years. And they've been a huge blessing. And they look at me as their mom. And a lot of people wonder before they go into adoption or anything, are you going to love a child that's not biologically yours as much as you would a biological child? Absolutely. There's
Oh,
no difference between the children I birthed and the children I did not birth. I love them all the same. And
that's so
my
nice.
life has been nothing but a huge blessing. And I hear a lot of people say that you can manifest things into your life. And I used to always say from the time I was young, I just wanted a good husband. I wanted to be a mom. That's what I wanted my whole life, to be a mom. I wanted lots of kids and I wanted to be a mom and I wanted a good husband. I wanted a boring life. And when I say boring life, like where have family dinners together at the table, we both go to work, we both come home, we both contribute to the household, we enjoy doing our grocery shopping together and those
Yeah.
kind of things. I wanted that. And that came into my life and I couldn't be more blessed. And I just thank
Oh.
God every day for my new life.
And maybe you needed all that chaos to be able to really appreciate the boring.
Definitely. It's been a wild ride.
Yeah, that is really wild.
Definitely.
I'm so thankful that you reached out and that you were ready to tell your story on our podcast. We appreciate it so much.
I thank y'all for having me. It's been great.
I hope that people can hear this story and think, yeah, I'm not the only one that went through a crazy relationship and made it out on the other end.
Definitely. Or maybe it's an indicator. If the red flags are there, it's okay to leave.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
yes. It's so fascinating to me, the Dateline aspect of it, the recordings, the interrogations, all of that stuff. And interesting kind of about how you maybe felt a little bit manipulated by the police, by them trying to get you on their side when there wasn't really a lot of evidence and not a lot of things pointing to him. So it's
Yeah.
interesting.
Definitely.
Yeah. My gosh, Julie, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
I hope that you felt good about telling your story and that you get to enjoy a nice, boring, quiet Mother's Day.
Yeah.
Thank y'all so much. And I hope y'all have a great Mother's Day as well. Y'all have a
Thank
great
you.
afternoon.
You
Thank
too. We'll talk to
you.
you soon.
All right. Thank
All
you.
right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, Michelle.
Hey, Carling.
My goodness, my voice. We've done 2 interviews today, plus this intro outro.
And I made you move a big freaking piece of furniture.
I know, it's like my voice gets worse if I exert myself.
Oh my goodness.
What I did see a TikTok where this girl had COVID and she lost her voice, like she couldn't do anything above a whisper, like semi-permanently.
That would be awful.
See, yeah, so
How could I yell at my children?
yeah,
would be
we'd
bad.
just get you like a cymbal
Or like a gong?
yeah, something that just made a lot of noise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
That episode was wild.
that was wild. I'm still not sure.
I know, I still can't, because I think I'm like Julie, where I'm like, no, I don't think he did it.
Yeah.
But then I'm kind of like, but maybe he
But I
did
don't
do
know.
it. This is why we're not in law enforcement.
Honestly, the more I do my job, which is at the bank, I do a lot of investigating and
Yeah.
I do a lot of digging into things. I should have been a detective. I really think I should have been.
I think
Because-
I can be swayed too easily
Okay.
with charm.
Right.
Should I be,
That has been proven.
I couldn't be, if there was like a good looking lesbian
Yeah.
committing a crime, I could be charmed into getting them out of the situation.
Okay.
But I'm also so skeptical that I assume everybody's lying.
Yeah.
And so maybe some innocent people would go to jail because I'd be like, you are full of it.
That's why my motto is literally trust no one.
Yeah.
Like, I don't trust anybody.
Not even me?
No, I trust you, of course.
Oh, okay.
But just when people tell you stories and it's, you're giving me too much detail, or maybe you're not giving me enough detail. And it's, what's your angle here? I
Yeah.
don't know. It's fishy.
Yeah.
Especially because working at the bank, there's so many like scams and things like
Yeah.
that. And unfortunately, the people who come in to take out money to quote unquote pay back the government
Right,
or
with
help a
Bitcoin.
celebrity
Yeah.
or they've been told to lie to us about what the money's for.
Right.
So then you also don't trust even the customer.
Yeah.
If they're like, oh, I'm buying a car. You're like, oh,
Are you?
show me the car.
Show me a selfie
Bring
with
me
it.
there right now.
Yeah. Sir, I will get in this car with you. We're going to go check this thing out.
Yeah, absolutely. So it makes it tricky.
I got a call the other day and it was like, this is...
Was it like border? Was
no,
Border
it was
Patrol or-
Visa.
Okay.
And I don't have a Visa card. And it was like, this is Visa, and we're just confirming that you just made a purchase for
Yeah.
$400.
Yeah.
Da-da-da-da-da. And
because they want to scare you into being like, I didn't make that purchase.
yes. So I was like in a mood, as
Okay.
I often am.
Uh-huh.
And it said click 1 if this was you.
Okay.
and to disregard this message, or click 2 to be connected to a representative at the Visa Center.
Okay.
So first I clicked 1, and then it just replayed the message. So then I clicked 2, and it was somebody who sounded like maybe English was their second language.
But their name was like Chad or something.
Yeah, Jared, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, hi, Jared. Yeah, I just got this call saying this charge went through. And he said, oh, yeah, and you didn't do it? And I said, no, I just want to confirm I did make that purchase. That was me. And he hung up.
Oh.
I was ready to play the game.
Yeah.
But
I saw a TikTok of a guy who had somehow hacked into the call center.
Yeah.
And when this woman called him and used her fake name, he answered, oh, hi, Priya, or something like that. And
her
she
real name.
freaked out.
Yeah.
And he was talking about what she was wearing and all this stuff. And everyone is like coming from... But it just makes me so mad because there's this room full of people who are...
Yeah.
That's their job.
Yeah.
Is to scam people out of their money. Oh, it's awful.
it's not great.
No.
It's not great.
It's not great. Trust no one.
Yeah. Except maybe your best friend.
Trust no one that calls you on the phone. Yeah. Nobody with good intentions will call you on the phone.
I hope everybody enjoyed this episode.
Yeah.
And I hope everyone has a great week.
I do too.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. You're not the only one.
And follow us on social media.
Yeah.
Because then you get to see the amazing content, like me putting that cry face filter on you.
Oh, that was horrific.
It is my favorite thing.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, you get to see a lot of behind the scenes shenanigans on our socials. So we're on TikTok.
Yeah.
We are on Instagram, Facebook. That's about it.
Well,
Patreon.
listen, we're on LinkedIn.
We are on LinkedIn.
If you're a professional and you want
If you would like to
link with us, then... And if
there.
you're interested in watching our Wet Your Whistle Wednesdays...
Or your Wet Wednesdays.
then definitely head over to the Patreon.
Absolutely.
Because it is going to be a...
Hootenanny.
I was going to say a wet whistling good time.
Ooh, it's going to be a wet time.
Ew. All right. We will talk to everybody next week.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.